What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Haze Demon Show. And today we are gonna start a brand new series for the channel. It won't last that long, right? Because it's a very focused. You've already seen the title, you know what it is. We are doing a tier list for every theme in the game. Since there's a new theme coming out, I figured this is the best time out of any to go ahead and do a tier list before some big changes in the world come up to us, right? So the first tier list we are going to do is neutral themed. I figured I'd do neutral themed, then we'll do mystical themed, and then we'll do adventure themed, and then we'll do sci-fi theme, and then fantasy, something like that, something in that order. Maybe adventure, sci-fi, mystical, new fantasy. I'm not sure. We'll see as we go. I'll try to do one of these videos once a week, but this is just the first one. I'm not sure what day that it'll be coming out, but anyway, this is this is 100% my opinion on the game, as I've been playing at the highest rank possible that I am capable of ever since the game came out. I worked my way up into Legendary during the first season of South Park Phone Destroyer, and I have never intentionally left Legendary. I've been kicked out a couple times near the beginning whenever it first... Actually, I think the first time it reset, it kicked me out, and then this recent time whenever they changed the ladder was whenever it kicked me out again. But I have been pretty much put in Legendary, so I don't really know the meta of Silver or Bronze or Wooden League, but I have a good idea of how cards work at a lower level in general, just from like challenge mode and friendly fights, and watching other streamers playing their games in middle, silver, and stuff like that. So I've got a good idea, not necessarily the meta, but I have an idea of how powerful a card is based on what it can do by itself with combos and how many counter cards are out there. Because a big factor in how good a card is, in my opinion, is how many cards in the game can actually counter it and make it an obsolete card. As in, you're putting that energy out, and there is 100% chance that somebody has a card in their hand that can counter it, even if they don't have a deck designed to counter that one card, right? So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. We're going to do this alphabetically. I'm going to bring the card out onto the screen. It's going to be exactly where I have it placed in the tier list, and then we're going to expand and talk about the card for a few minutes or whatever, and then bring the card back down to minimize and move onwards. Onwards! So, the first card that we have to discuss is going to be Big Gay Owl, and I set him at E rank, so he's not absolutely worthless, but he's very close to being there. The thing is that yes, he's a headhunter card. He can do direct damage. If you have a higher level Big AL and they are a low level new kid, yes, it is going to smash them without very little problem, right? I meant to make this big. My bad, guys. We're figuring this out, right? So here he is, nice and big, right? He's a ranged 5-cost headhunter, and he throws glitter bombs at the enemy leader, okay? So it's really easy to counter this card. He doesn't have a lot of health, even though, because he's a range shooter, he's not a tank, right? So he only has to walk a few feet to start hitting that new kid. It does good damage, but you need to be able to have a deck that can support him, and there's just a lot of cards that can counter a 5-cost headhunter that doesn't actually attack other units. So I find him to be in the E category, and we are going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Not too much to discuss there. We've got Classy. Now you guys know this is one of the more brand new cards, and it is absolutely terrible. We put it in the F category. It is a 5-cost fighter class, and with an enraged ability, when at half of base health or less, her base attack triples. So she triples her attack. It sounds really good, but the problem is her animation to enrage is kind of long, and it's a for her abilities, her bottom half of her health pool. It means that units are going to be able to chop her down really quick before she can actually get off any attacks. So she requires a ton of support to make her work. And when you have to put a ton of energy into a card, it's just not as good. And then it's really easy to counter this card because she doesn't attack fast. She doesn't have AoE attack of any kind. So she can get swarmed really easily. Or she could just flat out get lightning bolted. Like, she's a fighter, she's not a tank. So she can't really take a heavy hit like a lightning bolt. Or, I mean, obviously Unholy Combustion is going to easily take her out. But that's not necessarily an even trade since she's easily countered by almost every card that you put out on the field. You put 2 cards out that are 2 cost and 3 cost, and you're probably going to counter Classy. So she goes into the bottom category. The next card that's going to be coming up is Dog Poo. As you can see, we've rated Dog Poo very high. He is in the B category. This means that this card is rather consistent and there is very little obvious counters to this card. Which, obviously, right, any card can counter him, they're just attacking him, right? But they're not direct counters, they're just fighting normally, I guess you could say. Let's go ahead and get that Dog Poo in a bigger screen before I continue on. So he's a 3 cost fighter, hits hard with a masterfully wielded dog turd. Now this guy has a huge health pull and he hits like a truck. He hits like an assassin. His attack is a little bit slower. That's why he's not higher on the tier list, right? He's a little bit slower, so he can be countered with swarm units, but he's a very consistent card for 3 energy. Can carry you through a lot of games. And if he gets ignored and gets locked onto that NK, he is going to absolutely smash him. He's really good at countering cards like Classy or Mr. Slave. Or, you know, he can one-shot other assassins while taking their hit and move on to the next one. So he's a very consistent card without a lot of... You don't have to put extra energy. You don't have to combo anything with him. So he can just do his job on his own. So he's a really consistent card. Not a bad choice for anybody to play. Next card is going to be Man Bear Pig. We put him in the C+ category. And even though he is a legendary, holy shiza, it's real. The 7 cost tank. He has a huge health pool. He has a decent attack. But he goes into the C+ category simply because this card requires a lot of support. Yes, this card has a lot of health. He's a legendary. He is going to win you games in the lower tiers, etc. But the problem is that he has a ton of counter cards. So even though if they can't use the counter card right away, that's where you start to see the benefit and why he becomes a C+. But he does have Unholy Combustion, Transmogrify, even just Cock Magic with him on the field is going to net you a -2 energy trade. But if you can build a deck around him, you can do a little bit better. It requires, I guarantee you, it requires you having to play Mystic and playing Pope Timmy, because a 7 energy card that has the potential to instantly die to Transmogrification, Unholy Combustion requires a Pope Timmy. So, not necessarily a card that everybody can use, but it is a really strong card. That's why we put him in the C+ category. Right on. So on to the next, we have Marcus, which we have put, I guess I got that backwards there. We have Marcus in the B category, right there along with Dog Poo. Now let's go ahead and enlarge this picture. Here we have him. He's a 4 cost fighter with a charged ability, throws a drug pillow at enemy leader, dealing 30 damage. Of course, his damage scales. Now, the reason why he's in the same category as Dog Poo is because he's really consistent for that 4 energy. He's almost guaranteed to get 1 pillow off. So if you're playing a really tight, close match and you can't really get to the new kid, he is going to be able to put in that damage from across the distance consistently, right? And if your opponent has counter cards like Unholy Combustion, Transmogrification, Powerbind, if they use them on Marcus, you're actually saving yourself from another card like your Mecha Timmy, your Osimo, your Grand Wizard Cartman, whatever. You're allowing them to target Marcus and giving you some free space to use a stronger card. So he can set you up for another card to do even better because they don't have to deal with the counter card. Now, of course, your opponent is not always going to use a counter card on Marcus, which is why he consistently will be able to get his damage out and tank what he needs to. He's not really a tank, but he actually has some pretty fat health for a fighter unit. So, on to the next. It's going to be Mimsey Crush. Now, as you can see, and then he disappeared. He is in the E category, so he's not absolutely terrible, but he's right there along with Big Gayal in that he's a 5-cost tank, headhunter, slow, dumb, and only targets enemy leaders. His big problem is the same thing as Big Gayal. He is only going to be targeting the new kid, which allows for your opponent to build a counter push against you when they are taking down Mimsey. Now, Mimsey and Big Gayal, we're going to just jump in here with both of them real quick, can be targeted down with spells, allowing some room like I was talking about with Marcus, but it's less likely because they, especially Mimsey, talking about Mimsey here, he's really slow at getting to the new kid, which allows people to set units in front of him and body block him. And there's a really good chance that he doesn't even make it to the new kid because of just regular units, not even counter cards, just regular units getting in his way and beating him down. So, as much as he's my favorite card in the game, he is in the E category because he requires a lot of a setup to get him to work correctly. Otherwise, you're just wasting 5 energy. So we've got next on the list, it's going to be Mr. Hanky, the Christmas Poo. And in the first card to be in the A category, with a 3-cost assassin, Mr. Hanky. His war cry, double the charge rate on all allies for 20 seconds. This ability is huge. It combos with every card in the game that has a charged ability. Being able to use your charged ability more than once will turn the tide of the battle almost instantly. And the thing is, of course he's an assassin, he doesn't really have a lot of health, but he hits so hard. He has a strong attack, and it doesn't take a long, it's not a long animation, it's a pretty fast, he does like a back, or like a front flip, drop kick into people, which obviously is a turd, you can't tell it's a drop kick, but that's what it is, right? So he's a very viable card for any type of deck that uses charged units, which if you're not using charged units, you're doing it wrong. So he can consistently do a lot of damage and provide extra charged abilities. It is a really consistent, and there's not really a lot of counter cards. No one is gonna unholy combust Mr. Hanky before he gets his war cry off, because that's pointless, right? So you're almost guaranteed to get the damage and to get your ability off with him, like I said, very consistently. So on to the next is going to be Mr. Mackie, which we have over here in the D category. He is a 4-cost fighter, an aura, plus 7 attack to friendly kids nearby, which of course the aura scales up to how much, I'm not sure. This card can't really do anything on its own. Yes, it is a combo card, like majorly. It's going to be buffing up other cards near it. But there's a lot of chance that he's going to be standing right next to another adult character and doing absolutely nothing beneficial to the fight. He does have a niche in where if you are defending on your side, you can buff up your range unit, like maybe a Blood Elf Bebe, but the main thing is that you're buffing up your new kid, because it's a kid, right? He buffs up all kids nearby. So he can do better on the defensive side, but once he starts to go to the enemy side and your units start to spread some, he doesn't really stand near the kids enough to be able to get the aura effect, the benefit from the aura enough. I just feel like he just doesn't have enough bang for his $4 buck, you know what I'm saying? Even though he's not too bad. He's not bad. Like I said, that's why he's in the D category. He's not awful cards, but he definitely can't carry the game on his own, right? We're talking about top tier cards carry the game by themselves. They don't have to rely on other cards, right? So the next card we've got here is Nathan, which is a 4-cost range unit. We have him in the D category right there with Mackie. He deals area damage with exploding bombs. Nathan has a ton of problems because even though he has really long range, he has a low health pool. So for 4 energy, you can get poisoned, you can get arrow stormed, you can just get caught in some other AoE. He tends to die too easily. And with him being on the ground, a regular unit can swarm him because his attack isn't really that fast, and his bombs have a knockback effect, which the knockback effect is a double-edged sword, because sometimes it is preventing units from getting to Nathan or to attack another fighting unit. But if you have ranged units fighting with Nathan, they're making your ranged units constantly walk forward. And if your ranged units are walking more and more forward, they're going to get killed. So Nathan's knockback is a good and a bad thing. But the biggest problem with him is just that there's too many counter cards for him at 4 cost. If he was a 3 cost card, he would do way better. But with being 4 cost, it's a very good chance that you're going to just waste energy away. Now, of course, again, the reason why he's a lower category is because if you can combo him with a card like Ninju or Bounty Hunter Kyle, and he's sitting really far back doing massive damage, yes, he's going to do good. But the more that a card relies on other cards to do good, the worse they are. Then that's how we're trying to deal with this tier list here. So next we have Nelly, F Meister's waifu. We have her at C-, meaning that she's not absolutely terrible like the cards below her, but she is definitely not a card that you can carry into the late game, higher legendary, yada yada yada. The reason why is because this card doesn't scale very good. Let's go ahead and get it bigger about forgetting there. It is a 3 cost fighter area damage spinning attack. So she does a spin attack, right? And it does AoE around her. Her damage is really small. Her health pool is not very big. Maybe if she was a tank category, she would do better because she lacks in health, and that's the biggest thing for her, because if she's doing AoE, that means she's hitting multiple units. That means that multiple units are going to be hitting her. So in like Bronze, Silver League, she can do a lot better because the attack damage that other units have and the health pool is low enough that she can work them down and have like your new kid finish them off and things like that. But as you get to go further into the game, her attack and her health cannot make up a difference for 3 energy when she can just get soloed by pretty much any other 3 energy cost card. So she doesn't really need to rely on anybody else, but she just can't carry the game by herself, and she does not scale into the late game, into mid upper tier legendary metas. So like you can use her in the poison and low level assassins as you're ranking up, but when you start to get further on, she just can't cut it with the health and the attack that she has. She requires support. On to the next, we have Santa Claus. Santa Claus is a freaking monster. We have him at B category because he is a 5 cost tank. So maybe if he was 4 cost, he would be an absolute god, right? But at 5 cost, you kind of risk the chance of just getting instantly transmogrified, unholy combusted. But that's with any card at 5 cost or higher. He has a charged ability to fully charge up the power of allies with the spirit of Christmas. So you put him out on the field, he walks for a few seconds, gets his charged ability up, then you're going to pop your Stand of Many Moons, your Mecha Timmy, your Grand Wizard Cartman, your Witch Doctor token, your Program Stand. I'm just going to name some names there. You just pop him on the field, and instantly he's going to throw a present at them, and they can use their ability as soon as they hit the field. In fact, he can hit as many charged units on the field as possible. He has a really good health pull, and he has a really good attack. The attack is a little bit slow, but he actually has a pretty strong attack. So he can carry games all by himself and support every unit that has a charged ability. He is consistently really well. It brings a new kind of pressure against your opponent that they might not have the answers to right away. So if you're missing a tank, this definitely the right kind of tank to just slap in the deck. He can work in every tier, in any deck that has charged units. It's just very similar to Mr. Hanky when it comes to being able to support other cards. So a very good B class character there. We have up next Officer Barbrady, which is in the hot Garbo category because this card is a 6 cost tank Death Wish. Bomb deals damage to nearby enemies. This card does not have a good amount of attack, but it does have a ton of health. The problem is that this card has a ton of counters to it. Being a 6 cost card, if you get Unholy Combusted, Transmogrified, Cocked Magic, you're instantly at a -1 energy trade. And if he gets killed by Medusa Bebe, he is not even going to get to use his Death Wish. The Death Wish is actually pretty strong, honestly. If you can get him up against the NK and he dies, he is almost guaranteed to take a bar. But you got to get him there. And with him being a 6 cost, it is really easy to counter this card. He needs a lot of support. He needs other cards to work with him. And if a card can't do it by itself, it goes lower and lower on the list. And the more counters he has, the lower on the list. So that's why Officer Barbrady ends up at the bottom with Classy. Because 6 energy is just too much when you're not really going to get you have a high potential to not even get his ability off. Up next is going to be PC Principal, which we have also in the A category right there with Mr. Hanky. PC Principal is a tank 4 cost knockback social injustice with PC pushes. So he has a knockback ability. When he walks into him, he just pushes him. And it depends on the weight of the unit that he is pushing, how far they will fly. This card, it was so close to being in the S class, but the problem with PC Principal is that there is times where you do not want to push your enemy's units farther away. And the ones in particular would be like charged units, Marcus, Stand of Many Moons, or ranged units of any kind. He starts knocking back ranged units, they are going to be almost impossible to get to be able to kill. But PC Principal is a very good card. That is why he's in the A category. For 4 cost, he has a ton of health. He has a decent amount of attack. He's hard to deal with because when people put units onto him, he's gonna knock him back, and there's a possibility that he knocks him away from where he is. So he gets hit once, the enemy unit gets hit once, and then they go their separate ways, and he continues on. He is kind of like a pseudo headhunter, because as he pushes units out of the way, he's going towards the new kid. So it's a very good chance he just pushes units out of the way, and he's right on that new kid, smashing him. And he has so much health to cover the decent attack. It's not a lot, and it's not weak. He has a decent amount of attack. So the health is, he has a huge health pool for a 4 energy cost. This card can be used in almost every deck imaginable. For sure. Very good card. In challenge modes, in ladder, all of that stuff. So very, very good, yeah. So the next card we have is Pigeon Gang, which we have in the F category right there along with Classy and Barbrady. This card is 4-cost fighter, a flying, also totally gross. This card has a ton of counters, a ton across the board. I can see I cover my face, but that's okay. It's across the board that there is weaknesses. Poison, Aerostorm, any charged ability that's AoE, and the Beybes. I'll be right over here. Yeah, the Beybes can eat these alive and work to their benefit. So there is just a ton of counter cards for Pigeon Gang. And if you are trying to use them on defense, which is their main thing, I have found out that their biggest problem is that they are slow. They actually don't fly very fast. They fly so slow that when units are going underneath them, they can't stick to them and attack and attack and attack and attack while they're moving. They have to attack and then move and then attack and then move and then attack. They can't consistently attack. So they end up, the units running underneath them, walking underneath them, are literally just burning rubber getting away from them. So it's really easy to counter Pigeon Gang. They do damage, but they don't do enough damage, even if all of them are targeting down the same unit. And there is way too many counter cards for Pigeon Gang. It is no good across the board. Low level, high level, they just do not cut it. Even in a challenge mode where they were boosted up, they did not do good. Next cards is going to be Rat Swarm. These cards used to be god tier. Rat Swarm used to be the #1 card in the game that was recommended for everyone to have in their deck. Nowadays, they're sitting in that C- category, and the reason why is because there is so many counters to this card. It is a 3-cost assassin, 4 rats, probably from Kenny's house. They have their use. That's why they're not anywhere near Pigeon Gang, right? They can be countered easily, but they're not meant to be countered. They are the counter card. They counter assassins. They counter they counter tanks, you know, that have slow attack. You put a fighter up against a tank, and then you put your swarm of rats around them, and the rats are going to eat that tank alive. They do the damage, and they do it really fast. But they just don't have as much oomph as they used to. They can be countered fairly well. I mean, you know, like I said, they're not meant to be countered, but whenever they go to push with other units, they become almost completely useless. So their sole purpose is more defense nowadays than to be offensive. And actually, just a quick anecdote, I remember during the hyperdrive bug, you could put Rat Swarm on your field, hit hyperdrive, they would instantly run over to the NK and take a candy bar within like 3 or 4 seconds of the match starting. And your opponent almost couldn't stop them because the rats were just too fast. It was hilarious. But yes, that poison, you know, all the Bey cards. There is counters, like I said, but they just don't carry the game. They're an okay card. They do better in lower ranks because less health pools. equals more time to be able to attack, and new kid zap isn't as strong, so they can maybe get to the new kid, but as you get to a higher level new kids, the zap will kill them in one hit, so they can't really do anything on the offense. But they are pretty decent. We're putting them in the C- category, right? The next card, it's going to be Satan. We have in the B category, one category above Man Bear Pig. He is a tank. No, he is a ranged unit. That's weird. That actually should be a ranged symbol, I thought. Is it a... I think I have a weird card out right now. But anyway, he's a ranged tank unit. Yeah, it looks like the old art because it has the health is 999, right? Anyway, with a war cry, damage surrounding enemies and allies with hellfire. So when this card came out, he was super OP. He would have been in the S category, but he got nerfed like a third of his health and a third of his war cry damage. He is a really good card. He doesn't need anything to support him. He will literally just hit the field and destroy units. The reason why he's not higher on the list is because he's a 6 cost card, which is it's hard to run when you're just in the way the metas are. It is kind of hard to run a higher cost card. He can be unholy combusted before he gets ability off, but it's not easy to do that. So he's not really easy to counter because once his war cry goes off, his value has already been earned, basically. I mean, it depends on how many units you war cry, right? He just doesn't have a lot of attack. His attack is not too slow. His health pool is actually pretty big, so in general, he's a pretty good card. He's just not for everybody, you know what I mean? He is a counter card, but he can be countered easily after his war cry, right? So if you know your opponent's running Satan, you just try not to put too much into your push, or you try to spread your units. It's kind of difficult to think about Satan. I mean, I think he is a good card. He was just way better before he got nerfed, right? And he does not require any support. So I do think that he's a pretty good card. He goes, like I said, he goes in the B category right above Man Bear Pig. He doesn't need to be poked. And if he gets poked, it's just hilarious, right? Marvin is our next card. Starvin' Marvin goes in the category right there with Big Gay Al, Mimsey. He is a fighter, 4-cost, flying headhunter, and starvin'. So his biggest problem is his health pool. This guy flies through the air, which means there's no ground units can hit him, right? It has to be hit by ranged units or spells or other flying units, right? So he has a little less counters than Mimsey and Big AL, and he's 1 energy less. But he flies through the air really slow, and there is a lot of good ranged units out in this game. So he just cannot consistently put out the damage that he needs to. He's more likely to pop that balloon and go flying away before he can hit the new kid. Now, again, with all headhunters, if you can time it correctly, where you know your opponent doesn't have the counter card available, yes, Starvin' Marvin's gonna do good. But it's a risky card, and it requires you to have like a deck that can kind of work with it. I mean, Astronaut Butters or Caladro Elves or, you know, things of that nature. He just can't do it by himself. Very easy to counter the card, but the fact that he's a 4-cost does make him a little bit easier to use than Big AL or Mimsey. He just happens to be down here right along with them in the E category. The next card we have is the first God tier card. We sitting in that S class here. We have Terrence and Philip. the 4-cost fighter 2 buddies that fart in the face of adversity. These fartatulis are absolutely amazing. They fart fast, they fart hard. Their health pool is split. They can be, if they ninja buffed, there's ×2 ninja buff on a 4 energy cost unit, because it's 2 of them. You're getting twice as much benefit off of it. They attack so fast that they can kill assassins before they can even hit one of the Terrence and Phillips. And then, of course, if one of them dies, the other one is still going to be able to finish the fight. If one of them gets mind controlled, the other one can finish off its brother. Whatever you want. They're not brothers, you know, but you know what I mean. This card is so good that in challenge mode, where cards are way better, Terrence and Phillip is still good. Even if they don't get buffed in that challenge mode, they still do really good. These cards are good across the board. Bronze, silver, gold, legendary. These cards, as soon as this card came out, I knew it before the common and rare nerfs. I knew that Terrence and Phillip would be the new Rat Swarm, that everybody would want to have this card in their deck. And I don't really see it in everybody's deck, but I mean, I am in a higher tier legendary. It's less likely to run a 4-cost common card. But these cards are really good for defense. They can be countered. They can't be countered by Unholy Combustion and Transmorg, but they can be countered with like Fireball because of the 4 cost, and as soon as they have another unit right next to them, boom, Fireball. But I mean, Fireball counters a lot of cards in that nature that they're grouped up together. These cards have very little counters to them, and they do their damage. They do their job consistently in challenge mode, team wars, ladder. They're essential. They practically are essential in every deck in the game, but they're not obviously not required, right? They're just really, really good. There's no counters, no real counter to these cards, and they just, yeah, they're really good. So the next card in our list is gonna be the next god tier card, and it is Towley. Read them and wait, boys. I bet you didn't see that one coming. He's a 3-cost fighter with an aura. Whenever an enemy is in the range of Towley, they are slowed. This card is absolutely amazing, and I highly recommend Towley in everybody's deck. If there was an S+ category, which I probably could have made, Towley would be in the S+ category, because for 3 cost, this card consistently does its job. It is mainly a card that you use to support other units in the middle of battle. He slows down units. Slowing down the DPS of your opponents is huge. But he can 1v1 assassins very easily. He can help counter Dougies to an extent, of course, you know, but should I say headhunters? He can counter headhunters really easily. There is no real counter to Towley. If you put rats on Towley, he's gonna kill them because he slows them down too much. His slow effect is just underrated. Maybe it's underrated? I don't know. I don't think so. There's no counters, and he supports every card in the game. Its energy, the value of that 3 energy is well worth it. And he scales into the late game because he's an epic card also. So it's just an outstanding card. He's a good opening hand card. He's a good push with the rest of your cards. He's a good everything. He does everything, and he does it well. Of course, he doesn't kill units on his own, but he's not meant to solo units down, except assassins. He can solo assassins easily, but he's meant to support your whole entire fight, and it's outstanding. He can slow down war cries of like Rogue Token or Satan and allow you to be able to get your ability or your spell off faster, things of that nature. It's just amazing what Towley can do in this game, and I love it. I love it. Whenever they boosted his health or his slow ability, it became Very good. And the final card for neutral theme, it's going to be Terrence Mephisto. This card goes in the category right there with Man Bear Pig, above Nathan, above Ratatouille's and Nelly. He is a flying ranged unit, a flying bomber who deals area damage. The reason why he ends up higher on the list than Nathan is purely because he's a flying unit. He doesn't have that knockback effect, so he can't mess up your ranged units. It's not easy to deal with Terrence Mephisto. He does sit in the range of the new kid and get zapped down, but he has a really good chance of getting boosted up. He has a better chance of not being killed randomly by an assassin or a fighter rush. He's a lot more safer than Nathan. Now the thing is, of course, he still has plenty of counter cards: Poison, Aerostorm, Rogue Token. Those cards are going to be able to kill him pretty quick because he doesn't really have a lot of health. He doesn't have a lot of damage either. But the thing is that he's doing his damage over time, and he has a potential to be completely ignored. So the card, he does, like I said, he does have counter cards, but he's safer because he's flying. So he ends up with a little bit of boost there. But that is going to be it, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. This is the first time that I've ever thought about, I mean, I've been thinking about doing a tier list for a long time now, but with the new theme coming out, better time than ever. Been the best time of any time to be able to do it, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, this is my personal opinion on the cards. We're gonna do every single one of the themes, and I do believe that the next theme is gonna be adventure theme. They got a lot of buffs, so it's gonna be a little different than it would have been even a month ago. But yeah, I feel pretty good with this list. I think it's pretty balanced in viability, because that's what we're really going for. How well does the card work consistently? But that is going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and a subscribe and comment what you think about my tier list. What do you think needs to be higher or lower on the list? And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Don't you forget to bring a towel. Peace out.
Look at these scars.
Shut up, Mimsey!